Hi students, hope all of you are doing fine and welcome back to the paper discussion. So previously we have discussed the phase 3, 25th July first shift paper, right? Hope all of you have gone through that, and now we are going to discuss the second shift paper today, right? So we'll start. So here is the first question. So the value of the force F equal to A sine of bt plus C cos of dx. Then you need to find the dimension of AB by D, right? So this is a question on the dimension formulas. So individually, let us try to write the dimensions of A and B and D. So since A is a coefficient of this and B is a coefficient of T, and inside the sign, so you should not have any dimension for this. So definitely the dimension for B has to be 1 by time, correct? And similarly for D, it has to be 1 by x, so 1 by length, right or not? And for A, it is same as to be the force, right? So even of course, C also has to be the force, but they did not give anything on the C, so they have given only AB by D. So A is the for force, right? So force we know ml t power minus 2, okay? B is t power minus 1 upon D 1 by L, so you have L power minus 1, right? So D is L power, so you will be getting M L power 2 T power minus 3. It is same as, actually it's nothing but the power, the same dimension as the power, okay? So that is the first one, right? So option B, M L square L power 2 M T power minus 3, right? So we'll go to the next one. In the second question, force is given by F equal to 5y plus 20 j cap. Find the work done for moving the particle from y is equal to 0 to y is equal to 5. So under the action of this force, actually this is a variable force which is a function of y, and how much work this force is doing in moving the particle from y is equal to 0 to y is equal to 5. So let us do that. So here y is equal to 0, so y is equal to 5. So there is a displacement only in the y direction. So you know, for variable force, work done is nothing but integral of f bar dot dr bar. Since it's only in y direction, you are talking about force also varying only in y direction. So simply you can use f dy, right? And the range of y is ranging from 0 to 5. So work done is equal to force 5y plus 20. Okay, so j cap. So that means force is in y direction. It is also a function of y. So no problem. And dy. Directly you can put this. So integrate this. So 5 into y square by 2 plus 20y. Now substitute the limits 0 to 5. You will get the answer. Okay. So first you are substituting 5 and after that you are substituting 0. Okay. So 125 by 2 plus 100. So 225 by 2. Right. So plus if you substitute 0, second limit and all, you may get so around 1, 2, right? Fine. So we'll go to the next one. So that is a question number 2. Directly you are integrating that, okay, force function with respect to y and substituting the limits. Next. So this question, a hot air balloon is ascending with a constant velocity of 10 meter per second. And when the balloon reaches a height of 75 meters, a stone is dropped from the balloon. What will be the height of the balloon when the stone reaches the earth? So let us say this is the ground, okay, and hot air balloon is ascending with a constant velocity of 10 meter per second, and when the balloon is reaching a height of 75 meters, let us say the balloon is here. This is a balloon which is reaching a height of 75 meters. Already it is going up with a constant velocity of 10 meters. stone, when you drop a stone from here, definitely the stone will have the same velocity as that of the balloon because you're dropping from the balloon. Earlier, because the stone was a part of the balloon, right? So now the stone is getting 10 meter per second. So now the stone will have acceleration of g downwards, so it will go up and then try to fall down, right? So it takes some time. So in that time, the balloon is constantly moving up with velocity of 10 meter per second, right or not? So by the instant this stone is falling onto the ground, so how much the balloon will ascend up. So that's what. So you need to find the time of flight of this stone, right? So stone is having a constant acceleration, which is opposite to the direction of initial velocity. So you can nicely use s is equal to ut plus half at square, because you know the displacement of the stone from here to here, it is downwards, so minus 75 sign convention. So displacement from here to here, it is downwards, so negative, and initial velocity is upwards, positive. So 10t plus half, acceleration downwards. Okay, so minus 10 into t square. So you can get the value for t, right? So in that time, whatever you are getting, so this will come out to be. So if you can calculate this, so 5t square, okay, minus 10t minus 75 is equal. That gives you t square minus 2t minus 15, the value of t. Okay, so you can get minus 5 plus 3. Okay, so t is equal to 5 seconds. And t is equal to minus 3, it cannot be negative. So in 5 seconds, this will go an additional of, so 10 into 5, 50 meters extra it will go. So from this total height of this balloon, from the ground, totally what is the height? By the time the stone is reaching the ground, the balloon will be at a height of 75 plus 50, which is equal to 125 meters. Clear? 75 and 50, right? From the ground you have to measure, right? So this is a question number 3. Now we'll proceed to the next question. Here it is given relation between the position and time of a particle moving along a straight line is given by t is equal to x plus 3x square. This is a relation between time and position. Then find the acceleration of the particle at t is equal to 10 seconds. So you need to find the acceleration of the particle at t is equal to exactly 10 seconds. So whenever it is given like relation between the position and time, right? Of course you can get the velocity, but they are asking acceleration at so and so time, right? So what we can do here? So first I will take this function x plus 3x square, right? So from here I can get the velocity. So I'll differentiate dt by dx first. Can I get 1 plus 6x, right? So actually your velocity is dx by dt. So which you can write 1 by 1 plus 6x. Is it not the velocity? Yes. Now they are asking the acceleration at certain time instead of time. But here you have velocity as a function of displacement, right? So it's a velocity as a function of displacement. You know that acceleration is given by v into dv by dx. V times dv by dx, right? So acceleration v is already here 1 by 1 plus 6x and dv by dx. So from here dv by dx can be written as 1 by 6x whole square minus 1 by 1 plus 6x whole square, because 1 by x minus 1 by x square into differentiation of 1 plus 6x, so minus 6, correct? So this is your acceleration, which will be minus 6 by 1 plus 6x and whole square, so total it is q. This is acceleration. Now you got acceleration as a function of displacement, but they are not asking acceleration at so and so x value, at so and so time. Now the thing is, at this much time, what is the x value? You find out. So if you can find the x value at so in 10 seconds, what is the x value? That straight away you can substitute here, you will get the acceleration. Correct? So what I'll do, yeah, I'll take the initial function. So t is 10 seconds, which is equal to x plus 3x square. So here you will get 3x square plus x minus 10 is equal to 0. So here the roots of this will be 3x square. So plus x minus 10 is equal to 0. So total you have 30. So you get 30. So minus plus 6x minus 5x minus 10 equal to 0. Correct? So you can do it like this. So this x you can write as 6x minus 5x. Right? So then you are left out with 3x into x plus 2. Right? So minus 5 into x plus 2 is equal to 0. So x equal to 5 by 3 or x equal to minus 2. Actually at t is equal to 0, x is 0. So it starts not at x equal to minus 2. So this is only your x value, 5 by 3. So you substitute the value of x as 5 by 3 here and then get the result. So if you substitute 5 by 3 here, okay, so 10 plus 1, 11 cube. So you'll get a minus 6 by 11 cube, 1331. Minus 6 by 1331 will be the answer. Alright, like this you can work out. So especially in kinematics, any function can be given as any other variable, and any other variable physical quantity can be asked. It's always between velocity, displacement, time and acceleration. Okay, blindly they can give anything in terms of anything and asking any other thing to be able to work out, right? So that's a question, good one. Next, go to the next one. So here in this question, two particles of same mass and mass is same and charges are q1 and q2 are moving perpendicular to a uniform magnetic field where the ratio of charges is q1 on q2 is 1:2 and velocities ratio are 3:2. Then find the ratio of the radius. So you know that whenever the charges are entering perpendicular to a uniform magnetic field, they will execute a circular path, and radius of that circular path will be r is equal to mv by qb. Yes or no? So now they are asking the radius r1 upon r2. Mass is same, okay, charges are different, magnetic field is same, so only velocity is v1 upon v2 and q2 upon q1. That's all. Inversely to charge. So v1 upon v2 3:2 and this value will be 3:2. q2 upon q1 is 2:1, so that comes out to be 3:1. This will be the answer. Okay, right? So next one. All right. Now in this question, they are asking a particle performing simple harmonic motion with amplitude a. Find the ratio of the kinetic energy and total energy when the particle is exactly at a by 2. So when the particle is executing SHM, this is A, this is minus A. Now when the particle is exactly at A by 2, what is the ratio of the its kinetic energy here and total energy, right? So for that, so what is the kinetic energy? Let us try to find out. Okay, so kinetic energy, if you want to calculate the kinetic energy, you need the velocity at this point at a displacement of A by 2. There is a relation between velocity and displacement in SHM, that is V is equal to omega into under root of A square minus x. When x is A by 2, what is the velocity? The velocity at x equal to A by 2 will be omega times under root of, so A square by 4, right? A square minus A square by 4, 3A square by 4, that comes out to be root 3 by 2 times A omega. This is one way. Or simply we know that the velocity directly you can write, because it is a sine function. Sine 30 is 1 by 2 and velocity will be a cos function, right or not? And here the maximum velocity is A omega and displacement 0. Now listen, actually the displacement is, it's a sine function, and when you get 1 by 2 of sine 30, Now velocity will be a cos function, cos 30 will be root 3 by 2 times the maximum value A omega. Sin 30 times displacement, maximum value of displacement. So velocity also cos 30 times the maximum velocity, right? Now, so here the kinetic energy K by K max they are asking. Because total energy is nothing but maximum kinetic energy is nothing but total energy. Kinetic energy at this point by total energy at this point is same as maximum kinetic energy, and the maximum kinetic energy is A omega, right? So half mv square by half mv max square, right? So v square by v max square. V max is A omega. V is just now you have found out. So your answer is this square. So root 3 by 2 A omega whole square by A omega whole square. So that is 3 by 4. Here, right. So this is a question number 6, right? Just what they are asking here, kinetic energy to total energy. Total energy at this point is same as kinetic energy at the mean position, which is the maximum. Because at the mean position, potential energy is 0. So that's why you are taking the maximum kinetic energy as the total energy. Alright? Fine. Next. So there's another question here. In photoelectric effect, stopping potential is 3V0 for incident wavelength of lambda naught, and stopping potential is V0 for incident wavelength of 2V0, 2 lambda naught. So whenever wavelength is increasing, energy of the photon will decrease. So definitely stopping potential also will decrease. In that case, what is the threshold wavelength? Threshold wavelength is nothing but the wavelength which is required to just emit the photons, correct? So the maximum wavelength what is required so that the photoelectric emission is taking place, right? So that is a threshold wavelength, right? So how to solve? So you can use a photoelectric equation, that is in the first case whatever the energy of the photon hc by lambda naught is equal to some work function plus k max, and k max is nothing but you are writing in terms of stopping potential, okay, E times 3V0, because stopping potential is V0. K max is E into stopping potential, and stopping potential is 3V0 for incident wavelength of lambda naught. And second equation, stopping potential V0 for incident wavelength of 2 lambda naught, so hc by 2 lambda naught, correct? Now you can use these two equations. So if you want to get the threshold wavelength, you have to find the work function, because the work function is only, okay, hc by lambda threshold. Just let us try to find out what is the work function. From that you can get the threshold wavelength also, right? So how you will make it here? So you can multiply this one with 2, better. So because they are giving only in terms of lambda naught, so try to cancel this 3 first. So for that you better multiply with 3. 3 here, 3 here, 3 here. So if you can do that, what is that you are getting? 3V0, 3V0 cancels. So this minus this, 3W minus W, 2W. Okay, so 3 hc by 2 lambda naught minus hc by lambda naught. So hc by 2 lambda naught. 3 by 2 minus 1 by 2. Right? So your work function will be hc by 4 lambda naught. So work function is hc by 4 lambda naught. The same thing is substitute here. hc by 4 lambda naught is equal to hc by lambda threshold. So what is the lambda threshold is, so from here lambda threshold will be 4 lambda naught. Correct. And one thing you can easily tell this answer also. Why? Because definitely it will be more than 2 lambda naught. Either it has to be 3 lambda naught or 4 lambda naught. It cannot be 2 lambda naught, because when it is 2 lambda naught already stopping potential is there. So actually it is a maximum wavelength for which photoelectric emission will take place. If wavelength is more than 4 lambda naught, photoelectric emission is not taking place. So maximum is 4 lambda naught. So it has to be, threshold has to be more than 2 lambda naught compulsory, right? Okay. So this is this particular question. We'll proceed to the next question. This is a question in thermodynamics. Efficiency of a heat engine is 1 by 6. And if the temperature of a sink is decreased by 62 Kelvin, then the efficiency becomes 1 by 3. Find the temperature of the source. What is the temperature of the source? So we know that any heat engine, actually when it is working on a Carnot cycle, its efficiency is given to be 1 minus T2 upon T1. Correct? So T2 is the temperature of the sink and T1 is the temperature of the source. Now here this efficiency is 1 by 6 initially, 1 minus T2 by T1, right? So this is 1 by 6 initially. Now when the temperature of the sink is decreased by 62 Kelvin, sink temperature decreased by 62 Kelvin, this T2 minus 62, but source temperature is remaining same, that time efficiency is becoming 1/3 of the 3, correct? Now it is becoming 1 by 3. So you can calculate like this, T2 by T1, is it not 1 minus 1 by 6, 5 by 6 initially? Now what is this equation? You can write T2 minus 62 upon T1 is equal to 1 minus 1 by 3, that is 2 by 3, correct? Now if you can divide these two, you will get T1 is getting cancelled, you will get the value for T2. Yes or no? Yes. So here from these two equations, if you can divide, this is the first equation, this is the second equation. Okay, dividing will give you T2 and substituting back the value for T2, you can get the T1 also, right? So T2 by T1 by T2 minus 62 by T1. So T2 by T2 minus 62 is equal to 5 by 6 by 2 by 3, right? So you'll get 5 by 4. So T2 by T2 minus 62, right? So 5 T2 will be equal to 62 into 4 into 5. This value will be getting as 310 Kelvin T2. So when T2 is 310 Kelvin, what is T1? Okay, 6 by 5 times 310, you'll get T1 as 6 by 5 times T2, that is 310, right? 62 into 6. So 62 6. Around 372, yes. So getting 307, right? So that is this. Okay. So solving and all, so many ways you can solve. Next question, proceed to the next one. Activity of an element X becomes 1 by 8th of its initial activity in 30 years. What is a half-life? Right? So initial activity generally it is more because the initial number of nucleides are more. Activity is directly linked with the number of nucleides, directly proportional to the number of nucleides present at that instant. Right? So activity at any instant is equal to initial activity into e power minus lambda t. Know this. Right or not? So that means activity is becoming 1/8 of its initial, means number of nucleides are also becoming 1/8. Right or not? Because activity is equal to lambda n. Activity is nothing but rate of disintegration, which is lambda n. And activity becoming 1/8 means number of nucleides are becoming 1/8. 1/8 means initially n naught. So n naught by 2, n naught by 4, n naught by 8, like this. 1/8. Means this is one half-life, second half-life, third half-life. So total you have 3 half-lives. 3 half-lives are making 30 years. 3 half-lives. This is nothing but actually 3 half-lives. And this is 3 half-lives. Then they're asking us to find one half-life will be definitely your 10 years. Correct? So activity, because it is linked with the number of nuclides only, the number of nuclides are becoming 1/8 of the original. So then only activity also will become 1/8 of the initial. That is the logic. Okay, right? Because activity is directly proportional to the number of nuclides present at that particular instant. All right. Next. If de Broglie wavelengths of photon and electron are equal, de Broglie wavelengths are equal for photon and electron, then what will be the ratio of kinetic energy of electron and energy of photon? If you take given that velocity of electron is v and velocity of photon is c, velocity of light, that is velocity of the photon, right? So let us say electron and some photon, assume this traveling with v, this traveling with c, both are having same de Broglie wavelength. De Broglie wavelengths are same means actually their momentums are same. Then only they'll have same de Broglie wavelength. And they're asking us to find kinetic energy of electron, which is half mv square, and energy of a photon, which is mc square. This ratio they're asking. Correct? Now, we know that de Broglie wavelengths are same means momentums are same. This momentum mv is same as this momentum mc. So total mv value, okay. So if you take it out, mv value, another v by 2 is there. mv and mc, another c is there. So v by 2c. So cancel, mv into v is there. mv into v, mc into c. mv and mc cancel, so v by c will be there. So total at 2 is also there. v by 2c will be the answer. Straightforward. Correct? Or else you can write mass of electron, mass of photon. Want better? So this is the question number 10. Next. So move on to the next one. A square loop of total resistance 16 ohms, and if a battery of 2 volts and 1 ohm internal resistance is connected across one of its side, then find the potential difference across its diagonal. Total square loop is having a resistance of 16 ohms. Then each side of the square loop will have a resistance of 4 ohms. So I'll take a square loop with some resistance here, 4 ohms, 4 ohms, 4 ohm, and 4 ohm. Alright. Now you are connecting a battery across one of its side. This side, let us say I'll connect. With the internal resistance is also there. 1 ohm internal resistance, and this is a battery of 2 volts. Then what is the potential difference across its diagonal? I'll take a diagonal here to here, I can take. Right. Now, in order to solve this, first you can have to get the currents here. I want to get the potential drop from here to here. This is a point B, this is C, this is A, of course. Okay, B, this D I'll take. So I want to get the value for VB minus VT. So how do I solve? VB minus VT. This is a diagonal. You need to get the potential difference. So for that, you can get the currents here and here. So when you get the current here in this total branch, there is a single current. So that current into here to here resistance, that is 8 ohms. That will give you the potential difference. How do I get the current? So for that, this total 4 and 4 and 4 series 12. This is 12. This is 4. Parallel. Okay. So that is total. You will get 12 and 4 parallel. So 12 into 4 by 12 plus 4. So 3 ohms. 3 and 1 series. So 4. 2 by 4. So half ampere. This current will be half ampere. And that will divide here and here. Actually, the resistances are in the ratio. This is 12 and 4. 3 is to 1. This total branch 3 is to 1. When resistance are in the ratio 3 is to 1, current will be in the ratio 1 is to 3. 1 is to 3. Divide half amperes into 1 is to 3 ratio. 1:3 ratio. Okay, so 1 by 4 of half ampere, so here you will get 1 by 8. Okay, and 3 by 4, and this is 3 by 8. Now you can easily get VB minus VD is equal to, this current is 1 by 8 into total resistance from here to here, it is 8, that is 1 volt, getting only 1 volt. Clear? Simple question. So they are asking VB. Even if you try to calculate VC minus VA also, you are getting the same thing. Or VA minus VC also, you get the same thing across the diagonal. Okay, right. So this is a question number 11. So we'll proceed to the next one. So A bar and B bar are two vectors such that magnitude of A is 2, magnitude of B bar is 5, and if the magnitude of the cross product A bar and B bar, A bar cross B bar, cross product magnitude is 8, then what is the magnitude of A bar dot B bar, right? So from here, from the first equation, because the magnitude of A bar cross B bar is 8, and this can be written as AB into sine theta, where theta is angle between A bar and B bar, that is 8, and magnitudes of A and B are already given, 2 into 5, 10, so sine theta will be equal to 8 upon 10, so that is 4 by 5. And then they are asking A bar dot B bar, it's anyway scalar product, so which is equal to AB cos theta. AB magnitudes multiply these two, so magnitudes, so 10, and cos theta, since sin theta if it is 4 by 5, you will get cos theta as 3 by 5, so that you put it here, you are getting 6. Alright, answer is 6. Simple question. Vectors, cross product and dot product. Fine. Now we'll move on to the next one. Find the significant figures for the value 0.0034. So we have studied in the significant digits. Okay. So whenever non-zero number is there in front, whatever the zeros are there, even decimal is also there. As long as you don't have any digit here, you don't have any non-zero number, all these zeros will not carry any significance. Okay. So whether it is 0.0346 or 0.346 or 0.00346 or 0.000346, whatever is the case, number of significant digits are only 3. Okay, so all are zeros. But if you have 1 here, then these zeros will carry significance only if you have 1 before the decimal. Okay. So in this question, it is only 3 is the answer. Yeah. Suppose if you are having 1.00346, then the total number of significant digits are 6. Then these zeros will carry significance. Alright? Fine. And even if you have put one more zero here, then that also will carry significance. That time you will get 7. Fine? So that is what you know in significant digits. Next. So here is another question. For a prism, if angle of minimum deviation is equal to the angle of prism, the angle of minimum deviation is equal to the angle of prism. And if refractive index of the prism is mu, refractive index of the material of the prism is mu, then what should be the angle of the prism? What should be the angle of prism? That's what they're asking. So minimum deviation, here we are talking about the minimum deviation. Minimum deviation. So what things you know about minimum deviation? At a minimum deviation, we know very well that I1 is equal to I2 and R1 equal to R2. And also they have given this minimum deviation. So delta min is equal to I1 plus I2 minus A. Actually 2I minus A. Correct? and that is equal to the angle of prism. So in this case you will get nicely I is equal to 2a is equal to 2i, so I is equal to a. I is also equal to a, right? Then what about r? Because they are asking the angle of prism a value, right? So in terms of nu they are asking, fine. So r, and you know that r1 plus r2 is equal to a, so 2r is equal to a, so r is equal to a by 2. Then use the Snell's law at first refraction. So 1 into sin I is equal to nu into sin I. Both I and R you write in terms of A. So there is definitely a relation. I is equal to A and R is equal to A by 2. So sin I means A, nu into sin R is A by 2, sin of A by 2. So sin A can be written as 2 sin A by 2 into cos of A by 2 is equal to nu sin of A by 2. Sin A by 2 here, sin A by 2 cancels. So they are asking us to find angle of prism means A by 2. So this A. So first cos A by 2 I calculate. Cos A by 2 which is nu by 2. Then A by 2 is equal to cos inverse nu by 2. So A equal to 2 cos inverse of nu by 2. So 2 cos inverse of nu by 2 will be your answer. 2 cos inverse of nu by 2. So A is equal to finally from here 2 cos inverse of nu by 2. Right? Fine. So now we'll go to the next question. Or else this way you can do, or one more way you can also do. If you know the direct formula like in the minimum deviation, so how do you find the refractive index of a prism by using minimum deviation? Refractive index of a prism is equal to sine of A plus dm by 2 by sine of A by 2. Experiment. By minimum deviation method, you are calculating the refractive index of the prism. So already dm is same as A. So you can nicely get 2a by 2. So sine A by sine of A by 2. Like this also you can do. And you can get the value for A. Same. Right. So if you know directly this formula, nicely you can do it. Alright. Next question. A photon of wavelength 500 nanometers falls on a metal surface of work function 1.3 electron volt. An electron releases from the metal moved in a perpendicular magnetic field. Whatever the electron that is released from a metal, it is moving perpendicular to the magnetic field. So in a circular path of radius 30 centimeters. Then find the magnitude of the magnetic field, how much it is having. So for that, so first photon is falling on a metal surface, work function 1.3 electron volts. So then electrons are ejected out with some kinetic energy. So once electrons are ejected out with some kinetic energy, that electron is moving perpendicular to the magnetic field, so it will move in a circular path of some radius. Then what is that magnetic field? Magnitude of the magnetic field they are asking. So first we'll try to calculate the kinetic energy. So for that, you need to get the photon energy also. So what is the energy of photon? Hc by lambda, since it is given in nanometers, so you can write 1240 by 500 nanometers. So you'll get it in electron volts. First step, right? So here you are getting as 454 2.48 electron volts. This is the energy of photon. And according to the photoelectric equation, so energy of this photon 2.48 is equal to work function, it is 1.3 plus k max. So you'll get k max. So how much you are getting a k max? 2.48 minus 1.3 will give you 1.18, electron volts. This is the K minus. Now, the radius, once these electrons are entering into the uniform magnetic field, they'll perpendicularly, they will execute a certain path whose radius is given by mv by qb. And this you can also write in terms of kinetic energy, root of, because momentum of the electron is equal to root of 2 km by qb. Kinetic energy already I've got, you know mass of the electron, and you know the charge of electron, and you can get the magnetic field here, correct? So radius also given, everything is given, so you have to calculate the B value. So here you have to keep in mind that kinetic energies you are getting as electron volts, you need to convert it into joules, because 1 electron volt equal to 1.6 into 10 power minus 19 joules. So that you need to convert. Okay. So, and you can also know the mass of the electron, you know, and charge of electron, you know, so you can get the magnetic field. Okay. That is a question number. Alright. So you can do that calculations. Next. And whatever the value you are getting, so that you are converting into micro Tesla, you will get it in Tesla, provided all you are substituting in SI units, radius 30 centimeters, 0.3 meters, everything in SI units, magnetic field you will get it in Tesla. That you can convert it into micro Tesla, right? Next. So two electric dipoles P1 bar and P2 bar are kept as shown in the figure. So there is a P1 bar is kept like this, P2 bar is kept like this. Okay. Then net electric field at point S here, it is making an angle. This is a net electric field which is how much angle it is making, given that it is making an angle 37 degrees, right? So P1 bar is like this. This is positive, this is negative. So this is your P1 bar. And P2 bar is like this bar, right? Now if you look at this point S, this point S is on the axial line of P1 bar. It is on the axial line of P1 bar, and it is on the perpendicular bisector for P2 bar. Okay, so two magnetic fields if you assume, because of P1 bar, if you get a magnetic field of B1, P1 bar, because of that magnetic field is B1, and P2 is like this, because of which magnetic field you will get like this, because on the perpendicular bisector of P2, magnetic field direction will be opposite to the magnetic moment. Sorry, okay, it's electric dipole. Okay, rather than telling the magnetic moment, electric dipole moment. Okay, so this is a first dipole. This point is like a axial line of this dipole, so magnetic electric field, not magnetic field, electric field. Electric field is in the same direction as P1 bar because axial line. And this point will be like perpendicular bisector for a dipole P2. Okay, so the electric field will be opposite to P2, so this will be E2, right? So there is a relation between E1 and E2. So the tan 37, which is equal to 3 by 4, is equal to E2 upon E1, right? So E2 means electric field because of P2, which is a perpendicular bisector. So for that you can write so perpendicular bisector Kp by R cube P2 K into P2 by R cube, right? Similarly, E1 is K times, this is 2P1 by R cube, because axial line the formula is K times 2P1 by R cube. Okay, so that is equal to 3 by 4. Now you'll get a relation between P1 and P2, right? So this comes out to be P2 upon 2P1 is equal to 3 by 4, right? Then what is P1 upon P2? So you'll get P1 by P2 will be equal to 2 by 3 as the answer. Got it? Simple question on the electric dipole. So axial line, one field, and combination of vectors, right? So that is this particular question. Now we'll move on to the next question. Question number 17th. So power in both the given circuit are same, then find the angular frequency of the AC source. Right? So here there are two circuits given. One is with the AC voltage and only resistance here 10 ohms. That resistance is only 10 ohms here for the first one. And here same 220 volts, but you have 10 ohms resistor is there and 40 microcoulombs capacitor and 0.1 Henry inductor is also there. And power in this one and this one are same. So when the power is same here and here both, so that time it is only possible when this power factor should be 1. So that is possible when this is XC, this is XL. So XL and XC both are same. Then the net impedance of this will be same as 10 ohms. Okay, because the net impedance here will be under root of R square plus XL minus XC whole square. And here the net impedance is same as R. Right? And here power is same. And voltage is also same, 220 volts here. And here also you have 220 volts. Correct? So it is power is also same, means that this impedance and this impedance should be same. So this impedance and this impedance has to be same, means that is possible when XL and XC both are equal. So you can equate this XL equal to XC and XL equal to XC, then you can get the value for omega C. So XL is omega L, which is 1 by omega C. So your omega value will be 1 by root LC. Do this 1 by root LC. L is given inductance 0.1 Henry and C capacitance 40 microcoulomb. So you'll get the omega value in radians per second. Okay. So hope you can do this. Right. So we'll proceed to the next question. Right. So question number 18. For the given circuit, find the potential drop across 2 ohms resistance. So here is a 2 ohms resistance. You have to get the potential drop across this resistance. So how can you make it? So here there is a 220 volts here. Here is a 2 ohms. And this is a wire which is having the total wire AB is of length 10 centimeters. Here to here it is 10 centimeters and its resistance is 1 ohm per centimeter. Okay. So and D is the midpoint of wire AB. So since D is the midpoint of wire AB, you can convert like this. So here you can keep one resistance and here one resistance, because D is the midpoint. This will carry, because total length is 10 centimeters and for each centimeter is 1 ohm. So total resistance of AB wire is 10 ohms. So for which you will get this as 5 ohms and this also 5 ohms. And here this is the 2 ohms. Right? Now you have to get the potential drop across 2 ohms, means they are asking the potential drop here. Okay, so the total potential drop is 20 volts. It will be divided here and here. Let us say V1 and V2. Okay, so V1 means the total resistance for this potential drop will be, these two are in parallel. So it will be R1 R2 upon R1 plus R2. So that is 10 by 7. So here you can write 10 by 7 and this is 5 and you have a total potential drop of 20 volts. So 20 volts total potential drop will be dividing here and here, V1 and V2, in the ratio of their total 20 volts is dividing the ratio of their resistances, because current is same, right? So this is V1 and V2. So you can write V1 is equal to, okay, so total in the ratio of the resistance, so 10 by 7 by 10 by 7 plus 5 R1 by R1 plus R2 times total, that is 20. So you get the, okay, so that will be 10 by 45 times 20, 10 by 45 times 20, so you get, what I get, so almost 200 by 45 will less than 5 you will get. So that is this particular thing, right? Or you can get the current also. So when the current is flowing, right? So total potential drop by resistance, current into this also gives potential drop. Okay, whatever the potential drop across 2 ohms is same as across these 5 ohms because they are in parallel, right? So we'll proceed to the next one, right? So another question: mass of a planet is double the mass of the Earth. Both the planet have the same density. Planet and Earth both are having same density, right? Now, body has weight W on the surface of Earth. So this is Earth. Let us say there is another planet whose mass is double. If this mass is M, radius R, so this will be double mass 2M. This is a planet, another planet. Okay, this is 2M. So mass is 2M means volume, because density is same. So mass is equal to density into volume. Density times volume. Correct? So mass is double means volume is also double. Right? And volume is directly proportional to R cube. R cube. So that means radius will become, if here you are taking radius as R, right? So here you will get the radius in such a way that if you have 2R radius, then your mass will, the volume will become 8 times, so mass will also become 8 times. So only mass is becoming 2 times means, so radius will become 2 power 1 by 3 times R. This is the radius. Whole cube, so 2R cube, right? So like that. So here radius R, here radius is 2 power 1 by 3 times R. Now the question is, here you take G value, here you take G dash value. Because weight is depending on the acceleration due to gravity, right? Fine. What you can make it? The weight directly proportional to G. So I'll write here W dash weight by W, W dash by W can be written as W dash is equal to G, G dash by, okay, one more step, G dash by G, which is equal to G dash can be written as capital G into mass of this 2M by R cube, Gm by R square. So R square means 2 power 2 by 3 into R square by G is simply Gm by R square. So Gm by R square, Gm by R square cancels. So we'll be getting finally 2 power 1 minus 2 by 3, 1 by 3. This is W dash by W. So W dash is equal to 2 power 1 by 3 times. Okay. So 2 power 1 by 3 times W is your W dash. Clear? So weight is directly proportional to acceleration due to gravity, and acceleration due to gravity, Gm by R square formula. So for the planet, you're taking G dash, which is 2M and R square, 2 power 2 by 3 times R square. So like that you are able to get. And this for Earth, Gm by R square, right? So main thing is this one. So mass is getting doubled means radius will become 2 power 1 by 3 times this radius. Then only the volume will become doubled, so mass will become doubled. Okay, because volume is directly proportional to R cube, right? So this is question number 19. Next question. A force F bar is equal to 40 I cap plus 10 J cap is applied on a stationary object of mass 5 kg. What will be the position of the object after 10 seconds if initially object was at origin, right? So here they're asking, this is a force is a uniform force, so you can get the acceleration force upon mass. So mass is 5 kg, so 40 by 5, 8 I cap plus 10 by 5, 2 j cap. Is it not the acceleration? Yes. So it is having a uniform acceleration in x direction also, uniform acceleration in y direction also. And initially the object is at rest. What will be the position of the object if initially object was at origin? So, and also it is at rest. It starts from origin. So displacement in x direction is equal to s equal to ut plus half at square in x direction, u is 0, half acceleration in x direction into t square. So what is the total displacement in x direction? You will be getting 400. Similarly, displacement in y direction, half acceleration in y direction into t square, will get 100. So the position will be 400 comma, that's the position, right? That option you will be getting C, 400 comma 100, right? So initial velocity, it's a stationary object, so initial velocity is 0 and starting with origin. So that is why displacement itself is nothing but the positions, x and y coordinates you will get. That is the question number 20. Go to the next question. An AC source with Vmax is 220 volts and frequency 50 Hz connected across 10 ohms resistance. Find the time in which so current is becoming so and so, half of its maximum value, like that the question may be. So these questions are completely on the memory based of the students. Okay, we have collected. So it can be like this. The question, I'll explain you the question. Maximum is 220, frequency is 50 Hz, right? So here it is connected across 10 ohms resistor. AC source is there. Can be like this. Frequency of this is 50 Hz and it is V naught. It is not 220, rather it may be 200 volts. Okay, take 200 because 220 is already the RMS value. Value is 200, right? Now this is 10 ohms. Now to find the time in which the current is dropping to half of its maximum value or something like that. Okay, so current initially when you have a, it all depends on the sine function or cos function, right? So find the time in which the current is becoming half of the maximum value, right? So that time if you take V is equal to V naught sine of omega t as the voltage, so you get the current as I naught into sine of omega t. So after how much time this current will become half of the peak value? So I naught by 2. So I naught by 2 means omega t has to be equal to, so I naught by 2 1 by 2, so omega t 30 degrees, so that is 5 by 6. So then you will get the time in terms of omega. And omega you can write it as 2 pi into f. F is the frequency. You get the time, right? So like this you can make this particular question. So whatever may be the question time, so you can solve it. The only thing is when it is uh, AC source with pure resistance, so definitely both of them will be in the same phase. Voltage and current will be in the same phase, or only if it is a resistance with AC source. Okay, right. So now we'll go to the next question. Right. Here, a disc of mass 2 kg and radius 2 meters is rotating with an angular velocity of 600 rpm. And if this disc stops under the action of constant torque, is already rotating at some omega. Now it is stopping at under a constant torque. When torque is constant, angular acceleration is also constant. So under the action of a constant torque in 10 seconds, if it is stopping, what is the torque? Okay. So you need to get the value for the torque. So for that, first I will try to get the value for alpha. So mass is given, radius is given here. Initial angular velocity omega is given. Okay, it is stopping in 10 seconds. So omega final is equal to omega initial minus alpha into t, correct? Final omega 0, initial omega 600 rpm, both are in rpm. Okay, So that you can convert it into revolutions per minute, you can convert it into radians per second. So many radians per second, so 60 minus alpha into t. T is 10 seconds, right? So 10 alpha will be equal to, okay, 20 pi. So alpha value 2 pi radians per second square. Now they are asking torque. So we know that the torque is equal to, when it is a constant torque, the torque is equal to I into alpha. So get the value for moment of inertia first of all, I. Okay, so it is disk is rotating along with its natural axis. So moment of inertia will be mr square upon 2. So m is 2 kg, r is 2 meters square. So 4 into 2, 8, 8 by 2, 4 kg meter square. The moment of inertia. So moment of inertia already you got 4, alpha you know 2 pi. So that will be, so definitely torque will be 4 into alpha 2 pi. So that gives you 8 pi Newton meter. That's the torque. Okay. So if you can write this 8 pi as n pi, so then the value of n will be 8. Correct. So that is a question number 22. Next. Well, proceed to the next question. So again you are getting a question on vectors. For two vectors x bar and y bar, modulus of x bar equal to modulus of y bar. And modulus of x bar minus y bar, actually it is modulus of x bar minus y bar, modulus is equal to n times modulus of x bar plus y bar. Then what is the angle between x bar and y bar? They are asking, right? So this modulus you can write it as under root of x square plus y square minus 2xy cos theta, correct? So squaring on both sides. So can I write x square plus y square minus 2xy cos theta, where theta is the angle between x bar and y bar, is equal to n square into x square plus y square plus 2xy cos theta, right? So, and modulus of x bar and y bar both are same, right? So for that, so what you can make it? So this is x square, this is also x square, you can write, right? So can I write 2x square minus this also x, so 2x square cos theta is equal to n square into x square plus x square plus 2x square. So 2x square plus 2x square cos theta. Like this I am writing. So here you can take x square, here also you can take x square common, and 2 also you can take it here common. So here you will get 1 minus cos theta, right? So 2x square, if you take it common, here also 2x square common, it will get cancelled. 1 minus cos theta is equal to n square times 1 plus cos theta. Now they are asking the value of theta, which is angle, correct? For that, you can write 1 minus cos theta upon 1 plus cos theta is equal to n square, right? So you can use this component and dividend of that one, you can use. So a by b is equal to c by d, a plus b by a minus b, like that, that formula you can apply. A plus b, 1 minus cos theta plus 1 plus cos theta. So you will get 2 by 1 minus cos theta minus of 1 minus cos theta, minus 2 cos theta is equal to n square plus 1 by n square minus 1, right? So 2 cancels, so we'll be getting like completely cos theta. So you send minus that side, you will get 1 minus n square. So cos theta will be 1 minus n square by 1 plus. Okay. So finally, your theta is cos inverse of 1 minus n square by 1 plus n square will be the final answer. Right. So theta is equal to cos inverse of 1 minus n square by 1 plus n square. Right. That is the question number 23. All right. So simple calculations. So you need to get the value for theta. Next. Next. Find the energy required to break an aluminum nucleus into its constituent nucleons. So the energy required to break a nucleus into its constituent nucleons is nothing but binding energy. So that you need to find out. So how do you find that binding energy is mass of the nucleons? That's a binding energy. So neutron mass is given, proton mass is given, aluminum total mass is also given. So simple. So for aluminum, okay, mass of each proton, Z times mass of each proton plus A minus Z. This is the number of protons into mass of each proton, number of neutrons into mass of each neutron, right? So this is the total mass of nucleons minus mass of the nucleus, right? Mass of nucleus. This you will get it in AMU. And that whatever the value you are getting in AMU, you multiply with total, because 1 AMU is nothing but 1 AMU gives 931.5 million electron volts. So this much AMU will give you, so multiply with 931.5, you will get it in million electron volts. Correct? The only thing is, so for aluminium, you know what is the atomic number and what is the atomic mass. Right? Sodium, magnesium, aluminium, all that. Right? And mass of proton and neutron anyway they are given. Nucleus mass is also given. So like that you are solving. Okay? Right. So that is a question number 24. Now we'll move on to the next question, 25. So here also maybe the question not read. A cell of voltage V0 is connected across a capacitor of capacitance C. Now the space between the capacitor, okay, so is filled maybe with a dielectric, right? Then what will happen? Like that, this is a possible question, right? Which we couldn't take from the students. Okay, so that's why we could not make this question. Next one. Okay. So another question. Pure silicon at room temperature has equal electrons and hole concentration of 1.5 into 10 power 16 per meter cube. Electron concentration and hole concentration. Doping by indium increases the hole concentration to 3 into 10 power 22 per meter cube. Calculate the electron concentration in the doped silicon. Actually, initially this silicon, pure silicon, it is intrinsic semiconductor. Okay, intrinsic semiconductor. Okay, that time intrinsic semiconductor means you know that Ne equal to NH. Electron concentration and hole concentration both are same. Okay, intrinsic semiconductor. But if you dope it with indium, then hole concentration is increasing, so electron concentration may decrease. So there is one important formula that after doping, electron concentration into hole concentration is equal to intrinsic whatever it is having concentration whole square. These are after doping. This is before doping, right? So initially equal electron and hole both are equal. This you are getting as Ni, right? This is dash. After doping, I am putting dash. Okay. So these are before. You can write Ne and NH both are equal to I, right? So actually it comes out like this. Ne prime NH prime is equal to Ne into N. But Ne and NH both are equal. You are taking as Ni, so Ni square, right? So Ne prime NH prime is equal to Ni square, which is equal to 1.5 into 10 power 16 whole square. After doping, hole concentration already given, electron concentration they are asking 3 into 10 power 22 is equal to 1.5 10 power 16 whole square. So what is electron concentration after doping? So like that you can get the value for electron concentration after doping. Okay, so that is a question number 26. All right, next. So question number 27. A particle starts from rest and moves with a variable acceleration. Initial velocity 0 and it is moving with a variable acceleration. Right? So when it is moving with a variable acceleration, alpha t plus beta t square, where alpha and beta are positive constant. Find the distance covered by the particle in 1 to 2 seconds. So between 1 and 2 seconds, how much distance that it is going to cover. So first, when acceleration is given as a function of time, alpha t plus beta t square, variable acceleration, immediately you will get the velocity. Okay. So integrate this, alpha t square by 2 plus beta t cube by 3. And place a constant, and that constant is 0 because it starts from rest. T is equal to 0, v 0, so constant is also 0. Now comes to the displacement. So you'll get alpha t cube by 6 plus beta t power 4 by 12, right? So that is a displacement. And then they are giving, find the distance it is covering from 1 to 2 seconds, right? So, and here starts from rest, so we can take a constant here, t is equal to 0, its displacement is 0, right? So this you can take it as a position, displacement function. Now you want exactly from 1 to 2 only, right? So when you want from 1 to 2, what is the displacement in 1 second and what is the displacement in 2 seconds? So you can write the displacement from 1 to 2 is 2 minus s1. Substitute 2 in place of time. Okay, you'll get one relation minus, then substitute 1 in place of time. So you'll get, if you substitute 2 here, 2 cube 8 by 6. Okay, 8 by 6, so that is 4 by 3. So 4 alpha by 3 plus, you substitute 2 here, so this is 16, 16 by 12. Okay, 4, 4, 4, 3 is 4 by 3 beta. Right? This is when you substitute 2 minus. When you substitute 1, you are getting simply alpha by 6 plus beta by 12. The final answer, check it. 4 alpha by 3 minus alpha by 6 will be 7 alpha by 6. And 4 beta by 3 minus beta by 12 multiplied with 4. So 16 by 12 minus 1, 15 by 12 beta. 7 alpha by 6 plus 15 beta by 12 will be the answer. Yes, this will be the question. So this is the question number 27. Okay, next. We'll move on to the next question. So a carrier frequency of 1 megahertz and peak value 10 volts is amplitude modulated with a signal frequency. This is a carrier wave and this is a signal wave. And that signal frequency of 10 kilohertz and peak value 0.5 volts. Then what is the modulation index? And how to find the modulation index? So modulation index, we know that it is nu, which is equal to amplitude of message, okay, signal wave by amplitude of carrier wave. That is the modulation index. So what is the peak value of signal? 0.5 volts. By carrier wave frequency and peak value how much? 10 volts. That's all. So modulation index is 0.05. Correct? This is a question on the communication systems. Amplitude modulated wave. Okay? By using a carrier wave. So generally carrier wave frequency is more compared to the signal wave. Right? Okay. Next. Two soap bubbles of radius R1 and R2 in vacuum are combined isothermally to form a new bubble. Find the radius of this new bubble. Okay, there are two soap bubbles. So one is here, this is having some N1 moles of air, and another bubble which is having N2 moles of air. So these two combine, so these two total moles are combining here N1 plus N2 moles. This air and this air will combine total moles, N1 plus N2 number of moles are there. And isothermally, so temperature will remain constant Here whatever the temperature inside here, same temperature. Temperature remains same. Okay, so N1 plus N2 is equal to N1 plus N2. This moles plus this moles equal to this total number of moles N. Right? So here number of moles can be written as P1 V1 upon T. Okay, RT rather. R is a universal gas constant plus P2 V2 upon RT is equal to, here the pressure, you can write some P dash. Okay, so P dash, V you don't know, so V dash by RT. So temperature remains the same, RT cancels, right? Now pressure, inside pressure P1, here inside pressure P2, and here inside pressure some P dash. And we know that inside pressure is greater than outside pressure by an amount 4T by R for a soap bubble, and outside pressure anyway 0, right? So inside pressure is equal to outside pressure 0 plus 4T by R1. So can I write 4T by R1, where R1 is a radius, into volume R1 cube, I can write 4 by 3 pi R cube, 4 by 3 pi, 4 by 3 pi, 4 by 3 pi anyway get cancelled. I'll simply put R1 cube plus P2, inside pressure is equal to outside pressure plus 4T by R2 into R2 cube is equal to, and here inside pressure is equal to outside pressure, which is 0 because vacuum again. So 4T by R dash into R dash cube. So 4T is also getting cancelled. Simply you will get R1 square plus R2 square is equal to R dash square. What is R dash? Under root of R1 square plus R2 square. This is option. This is question number 29. Clear? So inside pressure is equal to outside pressure plus 4T by R. So excess pressure inside a soap bubble. That concept and the ideal gas equation concept, we are taking this particular question. Right? So we'll go to the next question. Ray is incident on a slab of refractive index 5 by 4. So here is a slab of refractive index 5 by 4 at an angle theta. So here it is incident like this at an angle theta. Here is a normal, right? So it will get refracted here like this, and here it is getting total internal reflected at AD. So find the maximum value of theta such that total internal reflection takes place at this phase. Because it's coming from denser to rarer, there is every chance whenever it is going from denser to rarer, there is a total internal reflection chance is there. Okay, maximum value, right? So at a particular value of this, you will get some value here R, and here you are going to get something like 90 minus R, right? Because this is a triangle, so 90 minus R. So if you keep on increasing this, this will get increased, so this will get decreased. So there is no chance of total internal reflection, right or not? So for a particular value of theta here you should get, this should become critical angle. So for this value of theta, this has to become critical angle theta c. That's the concept, right? So I can write, first I am applying Snell's law between these two. So that is 1 into sine theta. 1 into sine theta is equal to nu into sine r, right? So theta c is 90 minus r, critical angle, right? So here you can write r value, can I write r value as 90 minus theta c? So nu into sine of 90 minus theta c, r is sine of 90 minus theta, this is sine theta. And sine theta is equal to, because at a particular value of theta, maximum value, this will become critical angle. That is the meaning. Nu into sine of 90 minus theta c is cos of theta c. So sine theta is equal to nu into cos of theta c. Critical angle is given by sine inverse 1 by nu. This is a critical angle, right? So now your theta value will become equal to sine inverse of nu cos of, okay, sine inverse of 1 by nu. Okay, so and you have to get the substitute this sine inverse of 1 by nu, cos of sine inverse 1 by nu, all that if you substitute, this is sine inverse of 4 by 5. 1 by nu is 5 by, because nu is 4, 5 by 4. Sine inverse of 4 by 5. Okay. So sine inverse of cos of sine inverse of 4 by 5 is actually 3 by 5. So nu into 3 by 5, nu is 5 by 4 into 3 by 5. So you'll get sine inverse of 3 by 4. Sine inverse of 3 by 4. Right? The simple calculations. Here itself you substitute sine inverse of 1 by nu because already you know value of nu. So sine inverse of 1 by nu how much? Cos of that how much? So step by step you can make. Right? So this is question number 30. Right. So these are all the 30 questions in the second shift of 25th July examination paper. So we'll come up with the tomorrow's exam also, that is 27th July. So that paper also will have discussion in the next session. Right. Thank you very much.